Hi guys, welcome to another Edpuzzle lesson. Today we will be talking about adding and subtracting polynomials. So just as a reminder, whenever you see the pencil logo, make sure you write the stuff down in your notebook. And whenever you see the puzzle logo, make sure you answer the question on Edpuzzle. Alright, so here is today's focus learning target. Be sure to write this down. Given polynomial expressions, I will be able to add or subtract them by combining like terms. And if you ever need more time to write or process the information, remember you can pause the video or rewind at any time. So first, let's look at how to add polynomials. Alright, so let's look at a non-polynomial example. Let's say I have 3 green boba drinks and 4 purple boba drinks. Can I say that I have 7 purple boba drinks? No, because even though they're all boba drinks, we can't really combine them together like this because the colors are different. So the idea of combining like terms is pretty similar to this. Alright, so let's walk through some examples together to learn how to add polynomials. So for example 1, let's say I had x squared plus 10x plus 6x plus 3. So let's first look at the first name of each individual term. That's the degree. So first let's look at x squared. Since it has a degree of 2, remember we would call this a quadratic. Again, since the degree is 2, this term is a quadratic. And then let's look at the 10x. Since this one is a degree of 1, we would call this a linear term. And then next, let's look at the 6x. So the degree is 1 here, so this is a linear term as well. And this last 3 right here, since it's just a number, remember we would call this a constant term. And so the important thing to remember when you want to combine like terms is that it's not enough just to share the same variable. You also have to share the same degree as well. So for example, x squared and 10x, you can't combine those because although both have the variable x in it, x squared is a quadratic and 10x is a linear term. So they don't have the same degree, so you can't combine them. You can only combine terms if they have the same variable and degree. Alright, so that being said, we can combine the 2 linear terms together. So we can combine the 10x and the 6x. So what is 10x plus 6x? That's going to be 16x. And since x squared is the only quadratic term, that's just going to come down x squared and then plus the 16x, and also the constant's going to pull down, so just plus 3. So let me just rewrite this. It's going to be x squared plus 16x plus 3. So go ahead, if you need to, pause the video and go through the problem again in your head. This will help you process the information better. And also let's do a quick review from last lesson. What would we call this x squared plus 16x plus 3? Remember the whole idea of giving this a first and a last name. So the first name is the degree. So this has a degree of 2, so it's quadratic. And since it has 3 terms, so that's talking about the last name, so since it has 3 terms, it's called a trinomial. So we have a quadratic trinomial. Let's look at another example. So what if we had 6x squared plus 10x minus 1 plus negative 5x squared minus 2x plus 1. Again, let's look at each individual term. So 6x squared has a degree of 2, so this would be a quadratic. And then the 10x has a degree of 1, so we would call this a linear term. Up next we have this negative 1. Since it has no variable next to it, it has a degree of 0, and so it is a constant term. And then looking at the second part, we have a negative 5x squared. So what kind of term is this? This would be a quadratic term. And then we have the negative 2x. Since it has a degree of 1, again, this would be a linear term. And finally, this 1 over here is a number by itself, so this would just be a constant. And now let's look at which terms we can combine together. Let's start off by combining the two quadratic terms. So 6x squared plus negative 5x squared. Think of it as having $6 and then spending $5. How much do you have left? $1. So similarly, 6x squared plus negative 5x squared would be 1x squared. Next, let's combine the linear terms. So we have a 10x plus a negative 2x, or you could rewrite that as 10x minus 2x, which would equal 8x. And lastly, let's combine the constants together. So negative 1 plus 1, since they're opposites, they're going to cancel out and equal 0. So I have a 1x squared plus 8x plus 0. I'm going to rewrite that. You don't have to write the 1 before the x squared, so I have x squared plus 8x, and the 0 is gone. We don't write that down. So we have x squared plus 8x. So what would we call this? The highest degree is 2, making this a quadratic, and there are 2 terms, making it a binomial. So this would be called a quadratic binomial. Go ahead and try this next example on Edpuzzle, but be sure to show your work in your notes. So what is 8x squared plus 3x plus 5 plus negative 2x squared plus 6x minus 3? Go ahead and take your time. Be sure to show your work. Next, let's look at subtracting polynomials. So this is very similar to adding polynomials. We're just going to add one more step, and so I'll talk about that now. So here's the first example that we'll walk through together. So if we have 4x squared plus 6x plus 7 minus negative 8x squared minus 2x plus 6, how would we subtract these polynomials? So maybe you've seen this in past math classes, but whenever there's something in front of a parentheses, you're probably taught to distribute that. So we're basically going to distribute this minus sign to each term in the second part of this expression. Basically, we're multiplying each term by a negative. And when you're multiplying by a negative, basically you're just flipping the signs. So the negative 8x squared is going to turn into a positive 8x squared. And then the negative 2x turns into a positive 2x. And then that positive 6, since we're flipping the sign, that's going to turn into a negative 6. Everything else stays the same, so let's just bring that first part of the expression down. So we have 4x squared plus 6x plus 7. So now it looks like the examples that we went over earlier. So we're going to add this stuff by combining like terms. So I noticed that 4x squared and 8x squared are both quadratics. And then there's the two linear terms, the 6x and the 2x. And notice here that lastly we have two constants. So let's start combining them together. 4x squared plus 8x squared is going to be 12x squared. So we're combining the two quadratic terms. And then we combine the two linear terms. So 6x plus 2x, that equals 8x. So lastly, let's look at the constants. What is 7 minus x? So that equals 1. So we have 12x squared plus 8x plus 1. Let me rewrite this. 12x squared plus 8x plus 1. So just as practice, how would we classify this polynomial? The highest degree is 2, and there are 3 terms. So we would consider this a quadratic trinomial. Alright, so let's look at another example of subtraction. So what if we had negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 3 minus, and then in parentheses, negative 6x plus 2. Remember, I want to distribute this negative sign to both of these terms right here. And so I'm just going to flip the signs for both of these. So the opposite of negative 6x is positive 6x, and that positive 2 will turn into negative 2. So instead of plus 2, we have a minus 2. And let's just bring the rest down. Negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 3. And then we have that plus 6x minus 2. Okay, so now we can start combining like terms. So negative 2x squared is the only quadratic we have here. And then notice here we have two linear terms, the negative 4x and the positive 6x. And then we have the two constants, the positive 3 and the negative 2. Since we can't combine negative 2x squared with anything, that's just going to come down. And then we can combine these terms right here. So what would negative 4x plus 6x be? So when we combine them, this will turn into 2x. So positive 2x. And then let's combine the constants. So what is 3 minus 2? That's going to be 1. So we have negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 1. Again, negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 1. So again, just as practice, how would we classify this polynomial right here? The highest degree is 2, and there are 3 terms here. So we would call this a quadratic trinomial. So go ahead, try this example on Edpuzzle. Remember right here, you're dealing with subtraction. Alright, so that's it for today. Great job. Let's just do a quick review. So today you learned how to add and subtract polynomial expressions by combining like terms. And remember, you can only combine terms if they have the same exponent and variable. Great job, everyone. Please be sure to submit your notes.